Going live in 10.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting. Today is September 25th, 2023. It is now 7:02, and we are meeting the Board of Selectmen at the Training Room of the Public Safety Complex. First, we have a few updates. The first item on the agenda is a joint vote with Bay Path School Committee to appoint Jeff Wenzel. So I just want to clarify something here. So anybody who was watching the last meeting knows that we voted at the last meeting to appoint Jeff Wenzel to the Bay Path School Committee, which was an interim appointment until the next annual town election. It was brought to our attention that the proper way to handle this vote would be a joint vote of the other school committee member from Bay Path and the select board. So we've invited Peter here today in order to help us with that.
Correct.
You've had the opportunity to review the applications of the candidates?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Heather, were the candidate applications forwarded? They were attached to the agenda.
Is Jeff here?
I don't see Jeff
He's
here.
not, no.
No.
Are you
Hold on.
familiar with the candidates? Let's see.
If anything could, I mean, just a little background and that would be sufficient.
That would be sufficient.
I'm
for
thinking
you?
we could push this a little bit, and I could give him my iPad, and he could read their resumes.
That's fine with me, yeah? You want to do that?
Just
And then
trying to
we'll,
get to that portion of,
we'll come back to it. The town clerk had actually looked into this before we met the last time. And although our procedure the last time was correct for the Wachusett Regional School District, come to find out it wasn't correct for Bay Path. And when she had looked at it, the last time we had appointed, when we appointed Bob Wilby, there was only one school committee member at that point in time.
Right.
And so we were adding a school committee member, so that was actually a little bit different. So it had been so long since we did this that these things happen. So such is
Right.
life. But we'll fix it, and we'll make sure that it's right.
we happen to know what page that appears on.
And we're gonna get you over those applications so that you can take a quick peek at them and then decide for yourself who you'd like to vote for.
Steve.
All right.
Yeah, I know there's 53.
So while we're working that out, I will move forward, invite Travis up to talk about the water tank cleaning.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Travis Tebow from the Paxton DPW. Here to just more of as an informational for the select board as well as the residents here in town, that we will be taking the Asnabunskett tank offline to do some cleaning of the tank. This was a year 5 schedule cleaning, so this was all part of the initial contract we have with Suez to do a major cleaning. So in order for us to do this cleaning, we need to drain the tank. They'll get bodies in there, power wash everything, clean everything to the best of their ability, make any touch-ups to the interior of the tank as necessary. But it's a process, right? So just to give you a little background, right now, in total, we have 1.2 million gallons of storage for drinking water in the town of Paxton. There's a 1 million gallon tank at the Asnabunskett tank, and the Maple Street tank is a 200,000 gallon tank. We will be taking the 1 million gallon tank offline, so this leaves us with minimal storage, where we'll be 1/6 of the storage capacity that we typically have. We will be installing a water ban when we do this. So currently, the date has been pushed for the cleaning from October 10th to October 25th. So we'll be putting in place a water ban sometime around the 18th, I think. It'll be October 17th, 18th, 19th, in that ballpark. That'll give us roughly a week to drain the tank, lower the tank as much as possible to safely take it offline and drain the excess water in the tank in order for them to get in and do what they need to do. So I'm here before the board and the town's residents and all those that are watching, just to kind of let everybody know that when we do get to that point, it's going to be extremely important that we're asking you folks to conserve water at that time. With that said, I'm not saying don't flush your toilets. Stop irrigating. Try not to wash your cars if possible at the homes and businesses. Any unnecessary use of water. That's what we're looking for when we're talking about a water ban for this. It's to benefit the distribution system, the residents in town, so it's a necessary evil, unfortunately. We have to inspect the tanks every few years, and then according to the recommendations of those inspections, we typically do a cleaning. So we will be taking the tank offline somewhere around the 18th of October. Chances are this water ban will be in effect for 2 to 3 weeks. So that we'll need to drain the tank, have it cleaned, and then to refill the tanks, we have to do it slowly so that we're not damaging the distribution system. In that process, we're estimating it'll take 3-4 days to refill that tank. And once it's filled, we will then have to do some flushing, sampling, testing of the water to make sure that everything's safe and potable before we can put it back in service with the approval of the DEP. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Again, I'm just looking to notify everybody, to make everybody aware, and the expectation that we'll be looking for some water conservation and some assistance with the residents.
Okay.
With that said, there's going to be less water storage, so if we have any issues in the systems, we're going to probably send out code reds throughout the town to let everybody know. Hopefully, we're not dealing with that, but just trying to be prepared.
Hopefully we got that one out of the way, right?
What's that?
Hopefully we got that one out of the way.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Any
Any
questions?
questions, comments, concerns?
It might be worth noting that it won't interfere with fire safety or anything like that.
Again, we'll have 200,000 gallons of storage. So the way the water distribution's set up, it's set up with a SCADA system, so everything runs automatically with our oversight. So if there is a fire in town and the tank starts dropping, the pumps will kick on automatically to start refilling. Our pumps run roughly 450 gallons a minute when we're pumping water. So if the fire department's utilizing more than 450 gallons a minute, we're going to do the best we can to keep up with it.
Okay.
But we have 200,000 gallons worth of storage. So if we get to that sort of situation, I'm sure there'll be some more information coming out at that time.
And you've been communicating with the fire chief, obviously.
Correct, yeah.
Travis, do you anticipate that the residents will notice any change in their water after this takes place?
I do not believe so. With that said, we're also in the process of starting hydrant flushing in
Yeah.
the next week or so here. So when we do that, as I'm sure most residents are aware, you do tend to get some color in the water. It does stir up a lot of stuff. The whole process of hydrant flushing basically is to clean the water mains. So when we are maxing out a fire hydrant, when we're out flushing, that water that's passing through the mains actually scrapes the tuberculation off the interiors of the mains, and that's where you're getting the color in the water. So I'll say I'm not anticipating it, but in the process of flushing, again, you may see some sporadic color in the water.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Travis?
No, thank you for letting
Any
us know.
public questions for Travis? No? All right, Travis, thank you
Perfect.
very much.
Thank you.
Travis.
I appreciate it. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. All right. So we'll go forward then with the joint vote for the Bay Path School Committee representative. Just a reminder, there were 2 candidates, Jeff Wenzel of Davis Hill Road and Jeff Cormier of Sumi Street, as I recall. So with that said, I will entertain, I suppose I should, normally we would do this as a motion, but really, so this is going to be a roll call vote instead, okay?
Okay.
So Kirk, I'll ask you to start.
I'll make a motion for Jeff Wenzel, as previously discussed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Kirk.
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
I'll vote aye.
I also agree, Jeff Wenzel.
Peter agrees.
Yes.
Excellent. So we're in agreement. So thank you very much for coming in. I apologize for
My
dragging
pleasure.
you out on a rainy night.
No problem.
Hopefully, we'll be able to go forward and
Okay.
you guys can get your good work done on the school committee.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next up, we have the consent agenda. There are 9 items on the agenda. However, once we get through this real quick, I'd actually like to move one of them. So I'll read them off. I'm gonna move one of them only because we have the Boy Scouts here today. So, number 1 is to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on September 11th, 2023. Number 2 is to approve the meeting minutes from the executive meeting held on September 11th, 2023. Number 3 is to approve and sign the warrant for the special state primary on October 10th, 2023. Number 4 is to reappoint Cheryl Lombardi as the Select Board alternate delegate to the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission for FY 2024. Number 5 is to approve the addition of the library circulation assistant subs to the exemption from the State Ethics Commission education and training requirements. Number 6 is to appoint the following individuals to the DPW Building Committee: Kateri Kloot to fill the residential voter, Jason Burgess and Nolan Flynn to fill the construction voters. Number 7 is Boy Scouts request to put signage on the town common for a can and bottle drive on October 14th, 2023. Number 8 is a one-day liquor license from Milk Rome Brewing Company for a beer garden starting during a Anna Maria College football game to be held on October 28th, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And number 9 is another one-day liquor license request from Milk Room Brewing Company for a beer garden during an Anna Maria College football game to be held on November 11th, 2023 from 11:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I request that we move number 7 to new business instead. Anybody have any objections to any of the other consent items?
No.
So moved.
No. Hearing none, I declare that the other items have passed. And so I'd like then to move forward with the Boy Scouts if now's an okay time. Is there somebody who'd like to come forward to speak for the Boy Scouts to talk about the bottle and can drive? And then I think there was something else that you wanted to mention. Would like to come up? Hot seat, hot seat. You can go right to the podium. Just introduce yourself for us.
So I am Escaltranis. I'm the oldest of the scouts here tonight. So we want to do like a cannon bottle drive kind of as a fundraiser for scout activities that we do around now. And yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So thank you so much for coming up, and I know you didn't expect to do this tonight, so this is great experience for you though, right? So I just want to get to the, bear with me, the bottle and can drive. Do you remember the date for that bottle and can drive?
No.
That's okay, I'll find it for you, hang on.
14th.
It's going to be on October 14th.
Yep.
And so that'll be at the Common as per usual, and the Boy Scouts come periodically to get permission from the Select Board for the bottle and can drive because it's on the Town Common, which is town property and under our purview. And you use it as a fundraiser. What do you use the funds for?
Camp outs, trips, summer camp, that kind of stuff. So
Great.
Good stuff.
That's excellent. So I will entertain a motion to allow the bottle and can drive on the Common.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, so you're all set for the bottle and can drive. Now, was there additional comments that somebody would like to make?
He's going back.
Coming back.
we also need to complete a requirement about the constitutional rights of an American citizen. So maybe like after the meeting or something, we could just have a little bit to like, just like a questions or something. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we'd be happy to chat with you for a few minutes after the meeting, if that works for you.
All right.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Next up under new business is to discuss the potential date and items for a special town meeting and open the warrant. So I'll hand it over to you, Heather.
Thank you very much. So I did put together a little memo to everybody. It's also part of the packet, so if anyone's following along at home, they can be happy to pull up the packet. So what we're looking to do is do a special town meeting this fall. We have a couple pieces of business we'd like to take care of. I addressed them out here. There might be more things that we're unaware of, but at this point, this is what we've collected. One of the biggest things is the acceptance of a public way, Olivia Knoll. It's been a project that's been going on for a very long time. The very last step in the process was getting a check to the light company to switch out the poles per the request of the planning board to be in compliance with the original plans. That is currently underway, and the work for that, the residents of that road, about 5 houses, should have been notified by mail today, so hopefully they'll receive it by the middle of the week. The work will be done next week, and then it goes back to the planning board for their final blessing and approval to come back to the select board. But that will be finally ready. Once it's done, acceptance of public way means that they'll have the road plowed. So I think that's something the residents there have been looking forward to for a long period of time. Another one is prior year appropriations. So we have retained earnings for the water department that we have to have certified so that we can pay the last of the Worcester water bills that came in last year because they had some unexpected costs. And as you know, the cost of water fluctuates based on how much is utilized. It's not always a perfect science. It's about a $25,000 bill. So we need to get that taken care of. We do have a 5-year contract for Pitney Bowes. It's substantially cheaper to do 5 than 3. We did look. I couldn't find anything that changed the current laws. Maybe someone knows something I don't. But the last I looked at the laws, usually if you're going to enter into a contract that exceeds 3 years, you need town meeting approval. Enterprise funds. So again, this brings up the conversation of whether the select board would like to entertain the idea of establishing a trash enterprise fund. If they would, this is the time to do it before budget season starts. So it's a separate entity. The Wachusett Regional School District has asked us to put on onto a special town meeting docket the request for another revision to their agreement pertaining to the number of seats and the weighted votes. We currently have a zoning earmark that we've been working with the state and CMRPC on. The first part of it was to get an MBTA bylaw that complies with the rural adjacent community requirements. We've been working with CMRPC, hoping to finish that up this week and get it over to the planning board. Understanding that we still have a little bit of time to comply with this, it's still better to start getting this to the people as soon as we can. It's something that may not pass the first time, so we may have to take the feel of the town meeting and do some modifications and revisions. The biggest question on that's going to be location, location, location. And then the last piece is water regulation bylaw. So Travis was looking into something a little while ago, reached out to the state agencies on this, and they had advised that if we wanted to have the ability to move forward with shutting water off for such as non-compliance with letting us change out a water meter, the only way to do so is if we actually formally accepted our water regulation policies through a bylaw. So it's a little bit of housekeeping. That being said, looking at the dates for these matters, the date we came up with in talking to the town clerk and the moderator was November 20th. As you know, there's the special state election to fill Ann Goby's seat. That happens in October and then November. So in order to get enough time to be able to flow things through, last day to register to vote and so forth, the recommendation was November 20th. Our free cash and retained earnings numbers were submitted to the state last week. That also gives us a little bit more time to hear back from the state. Sometimes they're a little faster, sometimes they're a little slower, depending on how many people have a lot of traffic going on. The last pieces of this are just a brief timeline. So if the select board is in agreement, we have September 25th, so tonight you guys would open the warrant. October 16th, all articles due to the TA by 4 p.m. October 23rd, or another date if we end up moving that meeting, select board would close and approve the special town meeting warrant. We have to post the warrant at least 14 days in advance. And then November 10th would be the last day to register to vote.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to consider a special town meeting and open a warrant for same.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We probably need to confirm the date.
Yeah, can you,
November 20th.
I just have one thing before you go on.
Yeah.
November 10th's a holiday, it's Veterans Day. Observance.
20th.
No, but your last day to vote, so if they're gonna have that town hall.
so do we need to back that up a day because it's a holiday?
Town hall,
Right.
you know, I just.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So the date to register to vote, we'll check with Lori, but usually the state doesn't care about holidays. So even if she has to stay open on a holiday for the last day to register to vote, I think she's already has to do that once, and I think she was already mentioning she was planning on doing it for the 10th because of that fact. But that's very considerate of you, Jeremy.
All right. So this would put our timeline, obviously, as Heather dictated. November 9th or 10th would be the last day to vote, to register to vote, excuse me, and then the meeting would be held on November 20th. That is a Monday, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we've already checked, Donna's already checked with the school, they've confirmed it's available.
And they did confirm?
Yep.
Okay. All right, excellent. So I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor to open a warrant for a special town meeting to be held on November 20th, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. So you're good. You have all the motions you need on that, right? Okay. All right, next on the agenda. Actually, before we get to that point, we should probably talk about our next meeting because we're going to need to move that, right?
The one after.
The one after the next meeting, okay. And that corresponds with our timeline here. So if we look at, let me just look at that again. So October 23rd was the meeting that we were looking at potentially having to move. Calendar. All right, so obviously that's a Monday. The constraints on that day, you're away. When do you come back?
Tuesday, so November 1st, I'm available.
So
Oh, no.
as of,
Oh, yeah, November 1st.
as of November 1st, you're available?
Yeah.
Okay. And
No, ignore me. 25th. Jumped a week. 25th.
the 25th, okay. So as of October 25th, you're available, okay. And our last meeting before that is going to be
The 10th.
the 10th. The 10th of October?
No. Oh, yeah, because it's Tuesday.
Because it's,
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
right, because the 9th is Columbus Day, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we could do the 25th, if that works for you.
Yeah,
Is the 25th work for everybody else?
Kirk.
Not sure,
Wednesday, 25th.
but we'll,
It's a Wednesday.
should work.
Okay. All right.
I can't confirm that right now. I didn't bring my calendar tonight because I thought we were all set.
That's all right, that's all right. All right, and so we'll, Scott,
Scott?
25th work for you?
So far, yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so we'll consider moving then to the 25th, if that works for everybody? Okay. And I don't think that's going to mess with our timeline then, if that's the case. We should be able to stay on, right?
Yep, we'll
Okay.
just update that last date.
All right, good. Okay. So next on the agenda is to approve posting for the interim town administrator and discuss a reserve fund request. So Heather had sent out the posting. It is also included in the packet. There was, I think we just needed to add dates to it originally, in terms of what the timeframe would be on the position. Was that added?
Yes.
So we're good there. Any other changes or requests for the posting? We're good?
No, that's fine.
All right. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to proceed with the posting and allow Heather and Donna to go ahead and get that up.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so there's that. Now, there's concern that there might not be funding for the position. So Heather has mentioned potentially seeking a reserve fund request for that.
Yes.
Do you have an anticipation, Heather, of what you think that amount should be?
So I think it's going to range, if we're going to do 19 hours a week, the average pay right now for interims is ranging somewhere between $65 and $100 an hour. So the cost is going to be somewhere between $8K and about $13K.
Yeah, okay. So my suggestion is that we wait and see what we have for candidates.
I agree.
And then, and see what the request is
Yep.
for pay. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep.
Absolutely.
We could also use free cash at the special town meeting if we didn't want to deplete the reserve fund.
Right, right. Because that will occur before the
Right.
leave is anticipated to occur. Okay. Reasonable. Okay. So we have gone ahead and approved the posting, so please get that posted. And then we will talk about what we need for funding after that. All right. Moving on. So the last item that we have to discuss on the agenda is FY25 budget guidance. So Heather, did you sent out some information out to the department heads already?
No, I haven't
Not yet.
sent information out. So we've just sent this to the select board for your review first.
Okay. So you have the document in the packet?
Yes.
Does anybody have any suggestions, comments?
I thought it was wasn't entirely clear. We're asking for a make-whole budget, but then in the next breath, we're looking at a 10% decrease.
Heather, do you want to explain a little bit about your memo here?
Sure, so there's, I was trying to do my best of understanding what the select board was asking last week, or last meeting with the make-whole budget, right? So we did talk about in the event that that doesn't work, people should also be prepared to do a possible reduction. So that's the second part of it. So that's just keeping things in mind, letting people know, there's a potential that they may have to submit additional budget information to reflect a possible up to 10% decrease. So I was having a lot of trouble trying to make sure that I understood what the board was looking for last meeting as far as the make-whole budget goes. So we ended up, I had a bunch of conversations with Donna. We were trying to figure out, both of our understandings from that meeting. And I decided to go with a level-funded budget. Since we already know we're not going to be able to pay more than, it's going to be very tight. So that's the recommendation in this, which is a level-funded budget. But again, it's the select board's guidance, so I'm happy to modify however the board sees fit.
So you've changed, so this has been updated, amended, this?
No, this hasn't been updated, amended. This is exactly as you have it
So I think,
in the packet. It should say FY25 budget guidance, make whole budget, under budget dates. Does it not say that?
yeah, it says make whole budget, and then under number 1, it says level funded budget.
Yeah.
In my view, those are two different things.
Yep, so that's fine. So we just need to
Okay.
know from the select board, what is a make whole budget to the select board?
Okay. So I'm going to suggest that we not call it a make whole budget, I think, at this point, because I think that just makes things very unclear.
Okay?
And the suggestion to move forward with a level funded budget, I think, is probably a good one, because we are having some difficulty right now with making sure that, we've already seen that we're looking at a pretty significant deficit going forward. So if we start with a level funded budget, I think that is, last year, just to clarify, last year we asked for a level services budget, which is different than level funded, right? So level services is making sure you maintain your services, and if there are some increases that are needed in order to maintain those services, then we ask that you put that in the budget. This year, we're reflecting the fact that things are a little bit even tighter than they were last year, and so the ask is for a level funded budget, which may result in a cut to some areas, and we've talked in the past about how a level funded budget truly is a cut budget, right? Because, costs increase, expenses increase, and, as a result, you end up seeing less bang for your buck, so to speak. So, yeah, go ahead.
Just a question, because we only control a certain percentage of the budget, and a greater percentage is controlled by outside forces, how do we give guidance to each department as to how to level fund if the overall budget's to be level funded and we're not sure what those assessments are gonna be?
Right, so I think the department heads know that if they have contracted items, they have to follow the contract, right?
Okay.
So everything else, however, would stay as was funded last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in other words, if a department's bottom line was $100,000 last year, they have $100,000 this year.
I guess the bigger question, though, is not knowing what the other costs are going to go up. If we have to level budget or level fund, there's only certain places we can take that from. So I
Right.
guess that's the question.
Yeah, so
Does that make sense?
the next step in the thought process from what Heather just said is that, so if you have a union contract, for example, right?
Right.
The union contract dictates a 3% increase in wages. You have to follow that contract, and as a result, everything else has to come down by that amount
Okay.
in order to get to the same number at the end.
Okay.
So that's part of why a level funded budget ends up being truly a cut budget.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's a reasonable ask. I would like to see departments just send that in. We'd like to start. I think that's a good starting point. And Mr. Love, I'd ask you to chime in at any point because I think your perspective on this is valuable. But that gives us a nice starting point. And then, we move from there. If we end up having to make reductions or recommend reductions, then, we'll ask for what that percentage needs to be in order to have a reduction. Go ahead.
So, a couple of points. One is I would remind, while I think this budget guidance letter is a good idea, I'm reminded of the Select Board's very own goals, which number 7 says, hold a joint meeting of the Finance Committee in advance of the '24 budget season to work on directives for the upcoming year. This strikes me as being a directive. And while I have been at the last 3 Select Board meetings, I'm not the Finance Committee, and it's never been a joint meeting. So I'm suggesting that maybe before we get too far ahead of ourselves, that we need to schedule that joint meeting. I have my opinions on the letter. And the Finance Committee has been alerted that it was on the website for them to download it. But I don't know what their opinions are on it. So I think it would be valuable, time notwithstanding, I think it would be valuable to schedule a joint meeting. Keeping in mind that you might meet in 2 more weeks, but I may not have the ability to schedule Finance Committee in time enough to meet in 2 more weeks. I'll do my best if that's what the Finance Committee, the Select Board wants us to do. And I would think we might be able to pull it off, but I just want to be cautious that it may not come to be. But I do think we do have to have if nothing else, to comply with the Select Board's very own goals, that we would have it.
I am 100% in favor of that, Mark. So I'd be happy to do that. I think last year, when we made that offer, we got a different response. And so with you here today, agreeing to have that meeting, I would love to do that. I think that would be beneficial. So why don't we do that? Are we
With
good
that,
with that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we can pump the brakes on this and look to get a meeting set up. If you can coordinate with Mark as to when we can get that going. There's no significant urgency at this moment. It's good that we've gotten started on this early, as we all know, because it's a tight year. But there's no reason why we need to charge forward without getting your input.
Having said that, just in the event that the guidance letter is reworked, I have looked at it. I do have a couple of comments. I'd be more than happy to hold them until that joint meeting, but I'm happy to share with them this evening if that would help toward getting a better, more improved letter for that joint meeting.
Yeah, I think it would, actually, because then, we can work on that letter, or we can ask Heather to work on that letter, and then have something in more final form in preparation for the next meeting.
Yep.
And then we can hopefully just work out final details before it goes out. Yeah, so
So
go ahead.
just briefly, again, I want to underscore the fact, I think having this letter is a good idea. And I think as it's been crafted is certainly well-intended. My view of it is I do not like reference in the letter at all to the Wachusett Regional School District expecting to come in at 5%. I think if you throw a percentage out there, we basically paint ourselves in a corner that that's what it's going to come in at. A year ago, a letter went out saying 4%, and the Finance Committee was in much disagreement with that, indicating that it's going to come in at more than 4%. Then they're going to finagle the bagel, and it's going to come back in slightly more than 4%, and everyone's going to be happy, but who's to say it should have been 4%, not 3%, not 2.5%? I think indicating that it may come in with an increase but not quantify it, I think accomplishes the same thing. I think the second thing is when you talk about two budgets here, one of them speaks to the point of zero COLA, and I think that's a scary message to send. I think it's the wrong message to send. I think there's a different way to say it without saying that. If I were an employee and I saw that, you're going to immediately resign yourself to the fact that it's going to come in at zero, and who knows what type of exodus or problem that could lead to. So I wouldn't suggest that. And the other thing is, there was discussion at the last meeting as whether or not it would be one or two budgets. And I thought the select board was leaning toward one.
Right.
You just approved the budget minutes a minute ago, in which case I went on record on page 2 as saying it should be one budget in the lean budget, and now we have a letter that's suggesting two budgets. I understand where Heather's coming from, but I think that's going to be very confusing. I like the idea of one budget.
I do.
That was my recollection, Mark, as well.
So I think if you read, so it says, please be prepared to submit additional budget information to reflect. The intent here is to reflect your comments, I think, Julia, last time, which is having that backup budget ready for people to go. So it's not the intent here is not for them to submit the two budgets off the bat, but to have the first budget done and this budget ready.
Yeah, I think, that's such a moving target for a department head, depending on what the actual request ends up being in terms of a percent cut, that it's unreasonable to ask them to have that ready to go. I think they should have it in their brain. I think it should be in the back of their head about, what would I do in certain circumstances? But, the level of effort that it would require for them to say, for a 2% cut, this is what I would do. For a 3% cut, this is what I would do. And that whole strategy may shift depending on what the percentage is. So I'm not sure that would be time well spent for a department head. So my suggestion would be to, do you have any other comments, Mark?
No, I just want to add to that. I think it would be, first and foremost, is the concern of the department heads, but I wouldn't want it to be lost on the Finance Committee trying to balance two budgets or figure out two budgets. That's going to be very confusing for us.
Okay,
notwithstanding the billions that serves on that particular committee, but one budget's hard enough for us.
yeah,
Somebody's going to be looking at one budget, another member's going to be looking at another budget, one's going to be okay with one in the middle, and I think we ought to operate from one set of books.
okay. I can see where that could get very confusing. So with Mark's comments and with the comments that we've made tonight, any additional comments that you'd like to make? I'll ask that we have some revisions made to the letter, to the guidance to go out. And then, if you don't mind, Heather, letting us know when those are ready and letting finance know as well so that they can review. And then we'll work on getting a joint meeting together with finance in order to start moving forward with budget guidance. Sure. All right, excellent. All right. I don't believe I have any correspondence. And so next up is the town administrator's update.
Excellent, thank you. Board of Appeals, so we still have one. I wrote one and then two, but I believe we have one left vacant associate position for the ZBA, so if anyone's interested. Cable Communications Committee, we still have a couple open positions. DPW Building Committee, we're now down to one position. So someone for marketing or advertising is the seat that's open. So if anyone's listening at home or knows someone that has that background, lives in town, and thinks they would be interested in serving on the committee, we'd love to have them. Historic District Commission also still has one opening. Community happenings, so the COA Annual Health Fair is this week on September 27th from 10 to 1 at the COA. More information is in the COA's newsletter. Departmental updates, so as always,
Can I pause you right there?
Oh, sorry.
So with the COA Health Fair that's upcoming, this is a big deal, right? Because Cindy has made sure that we have flu shots available. It's available to anybody in town. That was actually a little bit of a tough thing for her to organize this year, so we're happy that she was able to find a vendor to come in and give flu shots. Another thing that I wanted to mention, and I came prepared for this, is that the COA Hearts and Hands Club sells things at the COA now. And so if you happen to head down there for the health fair, please look in the cabinets that are in the lobby as you walk in. I got this lovely scarf, which I adore, and I brought it today so that I could show it off. And so we have some lovely things over there for them. All right, please proceed.
All right, excellent.
Sorry for the interruption.
Building Department, so in August, we had 27 permits pulled. That was about 6 less than July and 9 less than August from the last 2 fiscal years. The 8 building permits included a deck, a basement bulkhead removal, windows, 3 roofs, and 2 bathrooms. So it's getting a little bit more to some of the minor things. As we got into August, we'll see what September pulls for us. But you can see all 3 fiscal years against each other if there's any questions as to how we're doing with building permits and what folks are pulling. Library trustees met a couple weeks ago, reviewed the submitted procurement documents for the roof, the gutters, and the HVAC control system. HVAC control system upgrades came out way too high in the 70s. We talked to the vendor who put in, as well as another vendor who did not end up putting anything in. We're going to do some modifications, and Pam and I will keep talking about those to see what we can do to get the cost more reasonable. They did have a agreeable amount for the library roof for the flat areas and the gutters. We do have 2 meetings to try to do before the next select board meeting. One is to see if we can schedule something with Capital, see if we have something that we can put on their docket just so that they can review the project and make sure they stay in the loop. And then the second is the local historic district committee. They picked up the applications that we submitted last week, and they're looking to schedule a meeting between now and the end of next week. So hopefully that will all be taken care of before the select board meets on the 8th, and we can do final approval for those pieces. IT, so we're still working with Suzer IT. They were working on internet network issues last week to try to resolve. We've had a lot of complaints about the COA guest network. What we do know is that the firewall is beyond its service life. We knew that it was coming to that last year, so we did have money in the budget. We just hadn't got around to replacing it yet. We're going to start there and see what else we need to do. because a lot of folks are getting a little hesitant about holding a meeting there if they don't have the Wi-Fi connectivity that they may need for their meetings. They're working with the police on their body camera server. That was in the process of being set up. And we are also working on the transition to Vadar Cloud, the finance software, going from the server to the cloud. Right now, that's scheduled for Friday, October 13th. So I figure that's a good day that no one touches any finances, and we'll resume on Monday. So pretty excited about that. Let's see, town admin, we talked about the special town meeting, so we're all set on that piece. Annual performance reviews, as required by the town charter, have been completed, all but one department head, which are working on scheduling. Finances, so as I mentioned a little bit earlier, free cash and retained earnings and year-end paperwork have all been submitted to the state. We hope to hear back from them by the end of October, if not sooner. FY '23 audit, so the auditors are planning to come in around Thanksgiving. I've already started working with them to make sure they had everything they needed from my office in case they come in and I'm away. So should be all good with that. ADA grant, we did submit an ADA grant again this year like we did last year for the COA. Same details, things are updated, and the cost is around $25K. Should hear back around late fall. And then FY '24, no real changes there. The recreation earmark, as well as the town common earmark, we haven't received final paperwork from the state to proceed on those pieces. So we do have another meeting coming up for the project that was paid for by the earmark funds for the zoning bylaw revamp. So that's coming up tomorrow. For the steering committee, hopefully we'll get some things over to the planning board at that point, and they can start doing some hearings to work through those bylaw pieces as we do the changes. And EDC met last week on Thursday night online, and we have an upcoming meeting, I think